Every story begins somewhere. Some begin with a choice, others begin with a plan. This one began with an accident. A crowded school hallway, the first day of midterm examination. Hundreds of students rushing toward their classrooms, each carrying their own worries, their own dreams, their own futures. And among them, two strangers, neither knowing that this ordinary morning would become a memory neither could forget. Aira hurries around the corner carrying books. Liam walks from the opposite direction holding exam papers. They collide. Books fall. Papers scatter through the air. Time slows. For a brief moment, the noise of the world disappears. Only two surprised pairs of eyes remain. Aira, "Oh no, I'm so sorry." Liam, "Wait, it's my fault." Aira, "No, I wasn't looking." Liam, "Neither was I." They gather the fallen papers. Aira, "Good luck on your exam." Liam, "You too." A simple exchange, less than 10 seconds, yet years later, both would remember every word. Pass through our lives only once. A brief encounter, a forgotten face, a name never learned. That should have been the end of their story, but fate seemed unwilling to let them remain strangers. Aira enters the library after school. She searches quietly through rows of books. A book catches her attention. She reaches for it. At the exact same moment, another hand reaches for the same book. She looks up. It's him, again. You again? I was about to say the same thing. Don't tell me this is your favorite book, too. It was until 5 seconds ago. So now what? I guessed whoever grabbed it first wins. Pretty sure that was me. I'll allow it. No names, no introductions, just another coincidence. Or perhaps the beginning of something neither understood yet. Most encounters are exactly what they seem. A passing glance, a brief conversation, a face that slowly fades into memory. But some people have a strange way of returning again and again. Days had passed since Aira and Liam's unexpected meeting in the library. Classes continued, assignments piled up, and life moved forward as it always did. Yet somehow, the universe seemed determined to keep placing them in each other's path. The lunch bell rang, and students flooded into the cafeteria. Laughter echoed through the room as chairs scraped across the floor and conversations blended into a sea of voices. Every table filled quickly. Aira carefully carried her lunch tray through the crowded cafeteria, searching for an empty seat. At the very same moment, on the opposite side of the room, Liam was doing exactly the same thing. Neither of them noticed it first. The cafeteria was packed, and only one empty table remained. Naturally, both of them spotted it. Aira started walking toward the table. Liam did too. One from the left, one from the right, as if fate had quietly drawn a line connecting them. Step by step, they moved closer until suddenly they stopped. There they were, face to face once again. For a moment, neither said a word. Then recognition appeared, followed by amusement, and finally a smile that came much easier this time. "Looks like fate wants us to share," Liam said with a grin. "Or the school just needs more tables," Aira replied. "That's significantly less romantic." Who said anything about romance? Fair point. The conversation that followed was simple. Nothing important, nothing extraordinary. At least, that's what it looked like from the outside. But sometimes the most important moments in our lives don't announce themselves. They arrived disguised as ordinary afternoons, shared tables, small conversations, and unexpected smiles. For the first time, neither of them was in a hurry to leave, and for the first time, being together felt surprisingly natural. What neither of them realized was that the distance between strangers had just become a little smaller. Sometimes, people don't grow closer through grand gestures or dramatic moments. More often, it is the smallest acts of kindness that leave the deepest impression. School had ended beneath a sky heavy with dark clouds, and by evening, the rain had arrived, steady, relentless, and unforgiving. Students hurried home beneath umbrellas, while the streets slowly emptied. Ira stood alone beneath a bus shelter, watching the rain pour down. She had no umbrella and no way of making it home without getting drenched. As she stared at the rain-soaked road ahead, she noticed someone approaching through the curtain of rain. It was Liam, holding a single umbrella. Without a word, he walked over and stopped beside her, gently lifting the umbrella so that it sheltered them both. "You didn't have to do that," Ira said softly. "I know," Liam replied. "Then why did you?" "Because you would have gotten soaked." Ira smiled. "Maybe." Liam chuckled. "You definitely would have." For the first time, the silence between them felt comfortable rather than awkward. There was no need to fill every moment with conversation. They simply stood there together, listening to the rain and sharing the small space beneath the umbrella. It was a simple act, one that might have seemed insignificant to anyone watching. Yet sometimes, friendship begins not with big promises or unforgettable events, but with a quiet moment when someone chooses to stand beside you in the rain. For weeks, Ira and Liam had continued crossing paths in the most unexpected ways. It had become a quiet routine neither of them could quite explain. Yet, one question still lingered between them. Who were they to each other? Were they merely strangers connected by coincidence, friends waiting to happen, or simply two people who always seemed to appear at exactly the right moment? One evening, as the golden glow of sunset bathed the school courtyard in warm light, Liam sat alone on a bench, enjoying the calm after another busy day. From across the courtyard, Ira spotted him. This time, however, she did not wait for fate to arrange another accidental meeting. With a small smile, she walked toward him, driven not by chance, but by her own choice. Their conversation began with a simple observation about how often they seemed to run into each other. Soon, introductions followed. Ira finally told him her name, and Liam shared his. They laughed at how it had taken nearly a month to exchange the most basic details about themselves despite seeing each other so often. What started as a brief conversation quickly grew into something more. They talked about their lives, their hopes for the future, their favorite memories, and even the fears they rarely shared with others. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of orange and violet, the hours slipped away unnoticed. For the first time, they were no longer just familiar faces in each other's lives. They were becoming something real. And even after talking for what felt like an entire evening, both of them left with the same feeling, that the conversation had ended far too soon. Days slowly turned into weeks, and weeks quietly became months. Without either of them realizing it, Ira and Liam had become a constant presence in each other's lives. What began as a series of accidental encounters
gradually transformed into a friendship that felt natural and effortless. They studied together in the library, sharing notes and helping each other prepare for exams. They walked through crowded school corridors side by side, talked about their classes, and spent countless afternoons watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and orange after school. They laughed at jokes that no one else seemed to understand, captured memories together during school festivals, and celebrated the small victories that made ordinary days feel special. One afternoon, while studying together, Liam looked up from his books and said, "You know, you distract me a lot." Ira laughed. "Sounds like a personal problem." "It is," Liam admitted, making them both smile. On another quiet evening, as they sat watching the sky change colors, Ira asked, "Do you ever think about the future?" "All the time," Liam replied. "Scary?" "A little." Ira nodded. "Same." Their conversations were never particularly extraordinary, yet somehow they became the moments both of them looked forward to most. One day, Liam glanced at her and said, "I'm glad we bumped into each other." Ira smiled mischievously. "Literally?" "Both," he answered. Some relationships arrive suddenly and change everything in an instant. Others grow so slowly and naturally that you don't notice them changing at all. Then one day, without warning, you realize that life feels different when that person isn't around. That realization came quietly for both Ira and Liam, hidden within ordinary days and simple moments. It was a feeling neither of them expected, and neither fully understood. Yet just as their bond was growing stronger, time continued moving forward. Graduation was drawing closer with every passing day, bringing with it new paths, new dreams, and the first real test their story would face. The day they had always known would eventually come finally arrived. Graduation day. Beneath the sky brushed with shades of blue and gold, Ira and Liam stood among their classmates, celebrating years of hard work and memories. Surrounded by laughter, cameras, and proud families, they smiled for photographs and shared one final chapter of their school lives together. Yet beneath their excitement was a quiet sadness. For years, they had been a part of each other's everyday world, and now the future was leading them down different paths. After graduation, Ira left for a university several hours away, determined to chase her ambitions. Liam was accepted into a university in another city, equally focused on building his future. At first, distance seemed easy to overcome. They exchanged messages every day, sharing stories about classes, professors, exams, and the challenges of adapting to a new life. But as time passed, university demanded more of them. Assignments became projects, projects became internships, and days seemed to disappear faster than before. Slowly, their conversations changed. Replies arrived later. Messages became shorter. One missed text became 2, then 3. Eventually, silence settled between them, not because they wanted it to, but because life moved faster than either of them expected. Years passed. Ira graduated and began building a successful career. Liam did the same. Their lives grew larger, filled with responsibilities, opportunities, and new experiences. Yet, despite everything that changed, one thing remained the same. Neither of them ever truly forgot the other. Sometimes Ira would hear a joke and immediately think of Liam. Sometimes Liam would catch sight of someone in a crowd and wonder, just for a moment, if it was Ira. The memories never disappeared. They simply stayed tucked away in a quiet corner of their hearts, unfinished, waiting. Then,
On an ordinary afternoon, fate decided it was time. The city buzzed with life as people hurried through crowded streets after work. Arya stepped out of a small cafe, texting her friend. At that exact moment, someone rounded the corner, coffee in hand, distracted by a message on his phone from the opposite direction. Neither was paying attention. And just like years ago, they collided. Coffee nearly spilled as both stepped back in surprise. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The sounds of traffic, conversations, and hurried footsteps faded into the distance. Arya looked up. Liam looked down. Neither spoke, neither moved. There they were, standing face to face after years apart. The same eyes, the same familiar smile, only older now. For a brief moment, it felt as though no time had passed at all. Then reality returned. Arya blinked. Liam released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Slowly, smiles appeared on both their faces, the kind reserved for someone you never expected to see again. Because sometimes fate doesn't arrive with grand gestures or dramatic signs. Sometimes it simply waits, and when the moment is finally right, it quietly brings two people back together. For a moment, neither of them seemed willing to let the encounter end. They had plans to attend, places to be, and responsibilities waiting for them. Yet, somehow, none of it felt important anymore. Ira glanced at her phone and quietly postponed the rest of her afternoon. Liam did the same without hesitation. After years of wondering what had happened to each other, neither wanted to walk away again. So, with a shared smile and an unspoken understanding, they decided to continue the conversation somewhere quieter. Together, they made their way to a nearby cafe, unaware that what began as an unexpected reunion was about to become one of the most meaningful conversations of their lives. The cafe was warm and inviting, filled with the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the soft hum of conversations drifting through the room. Outside, the city continued its busy rhythm, but inside, time seemed to slow down. Across a small table near the window sat Aira and Liam, two people who had once been inseparable parts of each other's lives, and then, somehow, became strangers again. At first, there was a hint of nervousness between them. Years of distance and unanswered questions lingered in the air. Yet, as they talked, something unexpected happened. The awkwardness began to fade. The conversation flowed effortlessly, as though no time had passed at all. They shared stories about university, careers, challenges, and dreams. With every laugh and every exchanged glance, they found pieces of the friendship they thought had been lost. As the evening grew darker and the cafe became quieter, Liam realized there was something he had wanted to ask since the moment they had met again. Taking a deep breath, he finally gathered the courage to speak. Aira watched him curiously, a familiar smile playing across her face. Liam admitted that he had never expected to see her again. Aira confessed that she hadn't expected it either. For a brief moment, neither knew what to say next. Then Liam asked the question he should have asked long ago, whether she would like to get coffee with him sometime. Aira couldn't help but laugh. Looking at him with amused eyes, she teased him for taking so long to ask. Liam laughed too, relieved and embarrassed at the same time. Then, with a smile that made his heart feel lighter than it had in years, Aira gave her answer. Yes. And just like that, what once felt unfinished finally found a new beginning. Because sometimes fate doesn't bring people together to relive the past. Sometimes it brings them together to create the future they were always meant to share.